Hello, everyone. My name is Jacob Dell. I work at CGF Architects, and I am one of the many folks who pushed upstream sort of as far as we have and got it to the point today where we are releasing a public beta version 1.0. So we're really excited to be able to release it out into the wild and start getting some feedback. So welcome in and thanks for your interest. This video specifically is going to be one of many kind of walking you through the how-to of upstream. Hopefully we'll get some why upstream videos up there once we start to record some presentations around that. But for now, this one is going to walk you through specifically the tool interface, the spreadsheet, the documentation, just kind of get into some of the nuts and bolts before we start running a LCA analysis. So let me go and share my screen. We can go ahead and get started. Hopefully you can't hear my neighbors are having band practice right now. And it's just one of the joys of working from home during the pandemic. It'd be a nice artifact if that comes through. Hopefully you can't hear it, or if you can, it's a pleasant background noise. So, all right, looks like I'm sharing my screen. And this is the spreadsheet. So assuming you've made it to the GitHub page where you can download the tool, links to these types of training videos, they'll continue to be updated as we move forward. But this is the spreadsheet that you download. So I'm going to walk you briefly through each of these tabs and sort of talk a little bit about what's going on. First page or first tab is the disclaimers and credits, basically talking about, how primarily this was a collaboration between CGF and the University of Washington. We're also using tally data as some of the background data that some of the calculations are based on. So we're giving sort of disclaimers, attributions, and credits on this page. We're also sort of listing me as a contact and an email in case you want to request documentation of the tool, a free copy, or just primarily for comments, questions, and pilot feedback. So you can shoot an email to that email address right here, and it would be great to hear what folks have to say. And it also talks a little bit about some of the versioning. We'll have this get updated as we move along. And as I mentioned before, we're in that public beta version 1.0 with a timestamp of when that came out. So moving along, intro and documentation. So this contains a snippet of the full documentation. We'll have this website link filled in here, but basically it should take you to the GitHub page. This talks a little bit about the background of the tool, gives you a scope table, but basically wants to link you to the full-blown documentation, which looks something like this, right? So this is the Word document version. Of course, you'll have the PDF, but this is an overview of all of the documentation. It's pretty light, right? We tried to do our best in terms of documenting everything to the fullest and being as transparent as possible. And then this is basically everything that's in here. And of course, we're pulling data from lots of other tools and data sources. So there's nested references and more documentation. But this is basically the upstream documentation. We've got basically the cover page, copyright information, or full acknowledgements. The copyright should also be available for download on the website, on the GitHub site, talking about the fact that it's an open source license. We want folks to take this and evolve it and build upon it and have the community contribute to pushing kind of Wood LCA forward. So it was designed to be an open sourced project. Talks a little bit about authorship, and then we get into the table of contents. So I just want to kind of walk through. Oh, and also there's a forward. So this is a little bit of the why upstream in case folks want to jump into it. But I want to go into how this is structured, because hopefully it'll be really useful as folks start to use the tool, and because it walks you through sort of step by step each one of the modules, calculation modules in the spreadsheet. It gives you a kind of an overview of like what A1 through A3 is, how the tool's incorporating it into its analysis, and then it walks through literally input by input, gives you what options you can simulate or analyze in the tool, and gives you a description of what those inputs do or data references behind them specifically. So this first one is really about choosing your type of EPD. We'll get into this, an actual walkthrough of this in subsequent videos. But this is just to show that, it gives you your inputs, various options, and then it gives you descriptions where warranted of what's going on in the background. And then also it gives you a related outputs section that starts to talk about, what graphs are related to that particular input and how that output is structured to give you some insight and analysis and feedback of the tool. So Like I said, this is a great resource too. If you have any question at any step along the process, you can jump back to this, and it should give you some pretty good information on the options that you're simulating or what's behind some of the methodologies. So let's jump back over to the tool. That's the intro tab. We've got our scenario 1 calculation sheet. This is basically, all of the primary inputs happen on this tab. If I zoom out, you can see it's pretty light as well, right? Inputs on the left, outputs on the right. It's green, it's a user input, typically a drop-down menu, sometimes a user or custom input, field. If it's blue, it's a calculation inherent within the tool. They're not locked, right? Because we want this to be as open and legible as possible to the extent it can be possible. So folks can really kind of look under the hood if they want to. And we'll cover some of those tabs as well too. And like I said, we'll walk through each one of these modules in subsequent videos. So that's the calc sheet. The next page is the next tab is the EPD reference library. So this will continuously get updated, but all the EPDs that we're referencing in the tool, we have a link to them here and sort of spelled out by product in case people need sort of a quick link to get to that. So those are all the kind of green tabs that are meant to be used and like looked at. The gray tabs are sort of what's happening in the background. Like I said, we're not locking these or hiding these because we want people to kind of see under the hood. The sorting table tab is all of the kind of dynamic drop downs that are built into it that's referencing other tabs. It's probably pretty hard to follow in general, unless you know Excel pretty well, but this is the basic structure of how we've created a macro-free spreadsheet to kind of do this very quick analysis. Calculation factors, this is basically the giant table of data, right, of all the EPDs and subsequent calculations and factors. It includes sort of the legend keying system that we've done to kind of reference and do XLOOKUPs to kind of identify which calculation factors to use for which module. So like this is the keys and kind of the references, kind of like linking back to the table. It's all this stitched together basically as best we could. Like I said, in Excel, there might be some other ways to do it, but that's how we chose to do it. And then we have the scope table that shows up in the intro document as a quick reference to what's being declared, what can be analyzed in the tool, and then sort of what are some of the data streams that we have in the tool currently. Hopefully that'll evolve as well too. We also have some of the more detailed tables. This is the end of life factors tab, and it contains the factors on a per kilogram basis that gets calculated, with this sort of calculation table, and then it gets visualized as a graph as well. So all of this contains really good information if you really want to dive behind the scenes and get a sense of where the kind of custom end-of-life calculations are, which we'll cover also in one of the subsequent videos. We also have some just tables of the tally kind of C and D factors. Since currently the EPDs aren't updated in tally, or there aren't always all of the supplier specific EPDs, we were able to take the C and D factors on a per kilogram basis and then essentially assign those to any EPD as long as we had volume and density and then ultimately kilograms of wood. We could actually apply those factors to other types of EPD information, or even some of the regional quorum LCAs that we have in the tool as well. So this was a way for us to kind of splice that data together, and it's showing you a little bit of those calcs behind the scenes there. Also the transportation factor tab, so this is all based on the tally data, but we did disaggregate it to where you can actually have a default tally workflow or a custom where you put in the transportation type and also the distance. So these are all the factors, that are kind of built into that engine. Then last but not least, this is the A0 forest factors that are in the tool. A lot of it's coming soon. We're currently evaluating a lot of the current methodologies and research that's out there before inclusion into subsequent versions of the tool. So really all we have is a custom input for an A0 factor as a proof of concept. So if you have a factor, broken down specifically into how this tool uses it, you can plug it in for now. Hopefully in subsequent versions of the tool, we'll have those pre-built factors kind of put in there. And currently, we're hopefully pursuing incubation with a Carbon Leadership Forum, and then also evaluating some of the EcoTrust forest factors out there. And some of the certification bodies are also producing factors, both FSC and SFI. We can swallow those in the tool and have those be easily accessible for the design community to do this kind of analysis. But yeah, so that at a nutshell is all of the different tabs in the tool, a little bit of a background on the actual documentation. So next video is we'll actually jump into doing a typical LCA kind of from soup to nuts, and kind of get into it at that level. So thanks for listening, and yeah, hopefully we'll see you at the next video.